John and Sarah. To everyone who knew them, they were the perfect couple. High school sweethearts who'd built a life together from the ground up. John, a steady and reliable architect, designed their dream home, a beautiful two-story house with a sprawling garden where their two kids, Leo and Mia, would play for hours. Sarah, a vibrant and talented artist, filled that home with color, laughter, and warmth. Their life was a carefully constructed masterpiece, a testament to their love. John looked at their life and saw perfection. He saw a loving wife, happy children, and a future that stretched out before them, bright and predictable. He believed he knew everything about Sarah. He knew her favorite color was sunset orange, that she hummed off-key when she painted, and that she had a small, almost invisible scar above her left eyebrow from a childhood fall. He thought he knew her heart, her dreams, her very soul. But what John didn't know was that a secret lay dormant within the foundations of their perfect life. A secret Sarah had guarded for years. A fault line ready to crack their world wide open. The day it all began was unremarkable. A Tuesday just like any other. John came home from work, kissed Sarah, and helped the kids with their homework. Later that evening, as he was tidying up the living room, he noticed a letter on the mantelpiece, tucked behind a framed photo of their wedding day. It was an old, cream-colored envelope, slightly yellowed with age, and the handwriting was unfamiliar, elegant, looping cursive. Curiosity piqued, he picked it up. It was addressed to Sarah. He was about to call out to her, to ask who it was from, but something stopped him. A strange, prickling intuition. He turned the envelope over. There was no return address. A knot of unease began to form in his stomach. He'd never been the suspicious type. Trust was the bedrock of their marriage. But this letter felt different, like a foreign object in their carefully curated home. He placed it back, deciding to ask her about it later, but the image of the strange handwriting was burned into his mind. Over the next few days, John's unease grew. He noticed subtle shifts in Sarah's behavior. She seemed distant, lost in thought. She'd stare out the window for long stretches, a pensive look on her face. Her laughter, once a constant melody in their home, seemed a little forced, a little less bright. She started taking long, solitary walks in the evenings, something she hadn't done in years. When John asked if everything was okay, she'd just smile, a tight, reassuring smile that didn't quite reach her eyes, and say she was just a bit tired. But John knew his wife. He knew the difference between tired and troubled. The unopened letter remained on the mantelpiece, a silent, mocking presence. It became a symbol of the growing distance between them, a chasm that was opening up right in the middle of their living room. He felt like a stranger in his own home, watching his wife from across a divide he couldn't comprehend. The breaking point came a week later. John had to return home early from work to pick up some blueprints he'd forgotten. As he pulled into the driveway, he saw Sarah in the garden, on her phone. Her back was to him, her posture rigid. He couldn't hear her words, but he could hear the tone. It was hushed, urgent, and laced with an emotion he couldn't place. It sounded like panic. He watched as she ended the call, took a deep, shaky breath, and wiped a tear from her cheek. That was it. The knot of unease in his stomach tightened into a cold, hard fist of dread. He walked into the house, his heart pounding against his ribs. The letter was still there. He couldn't ignore it any longer. He needed to know what was happening to his wife, to their marriage. With trembling hands, he walked to the mantelpiece, his reflection in the picture frame a ghostly image of a man he no longer recognized. He took the letter. His hands shook as he carefully opened the envelope. The paper inside was just as old, the ink faded, but still legible. As he read, the words began to blur, the floor seeming to tilt beneath his feet. The letter wasn't a love letter, not in the way he'd feared. It was from a woman, a stranger, and it spoke of a past John knew nothing about. It mentioned a name, Daniel. It spoke of a promise, a pact made years ago, long before John and Sarah had even met. It detailed a life Sarah had lived, a life completely separate from the one she had with him. According to the letter, Sarah wasn't an only child as she'd always told him. She had a brother, an identical twin brother named Daniel. They had been inseparable as children, but a traumatic event had torn them apart, forcing Daniel into a life on the run, a life in hiding. The letter was a plea. Daniel was in trouble, and he needed her help. He needed the one person in the world he could trust. John sank onto the sofa, the letter falling from his limp hand. His mind was a whirlwind of confusion and disbelief. A twin brother? All these years, Sarah had a twin brother she had never once mentioned? He thought back over their entire relationship, searching for clues, for any sign he might have missed. He remembered her occasional moments of deep sadness, which she always brushed off as artistic melancholy. He recalled her fierce, almost primal protectiveness of their own children, a ferocity that sometimes seemed disproportionate. Was this the reason? Was she living with the ghost of a lost brother? The woman he loved, the mother of his children, was a stranger. The foundation of their perfect life wasn't just cracked. It was a lie. He felt a surge of betrayal so profound it stole his breath. How could she keep this from him? What else was she hiding? The portrait of their perfect marriage shattered into a million pieces around him. Just then the front door opened, and Sarah walked in, her face pale. She saw John on the sofa, saw the open letter on the floor, and her expression crumbled. The mask of composure she had worn for years finally fell away, revealing the raw fear and pain beneath. "John," she whispered, her voice barely audible. Tears streamed down her face as she sank to her knees in front of him. And then, the story came pouring out. She told him everything. About Daniel. About the pact they made as teenagers to protect each other, no matter what. About the dangerous mistake Daniel had made that forced him to disappear, changing his identity to stay safe. She had promised to be his anchor, his only link to the life he'd left behind. For 20 years, she had carried this secret alone, a crushing weight on her soul. She had wanted to tell John, 1,000 times she had almost told him. But she was terrified. Terrified of putting him and the children in danger, and terrified that he would see her not as the woman he loved, but as a liar. John listened, his initial anger slowly giving way to a dawning, painful understanding. He saw not a deceiver, but a woman trapped by a promise made in her youth. He saw the incredible burden she had carried alone for so long, the solitary struggle she had endured to protect both her families, the one she was born into and the one they had built together. The secret wasn't born of malice, but of fear and a deep, desperate love for her brother. He looked at his wife, truly looked at her, and saw past the secret to the woman underneath. He saw her strength, her loyalty, her silent sacrifice. His heart ached for her, for the lonely years she had spent guarding this secret. The anger was still there, a dull throb of hurt, but it was now mingled with a wave of empathy. This wasn't the end of their marriage. It was a violent, jarring new beginning. He reached out and pulled her into his arms, holding her as she sobbed. "We'll face this together," he said, the words feeling both strange and right on his tongue. He didn't know what the future held. He didn't know who Daniel was or what trouble he was in. He only knew that the woman in his arms was his wife, and their life, imperfect and fractured as it now seemed, was still their life. The secret hadn't destroyed them. It had stripped away the illusion of perfection and left them with something raw, something real, and perhaps something even stronger. They were no longer the perfect couple living in a perfect house. They were just John and Sarah, two people bound together, facing an unknown future, not as individuals with secrets, but as a team, together. Thank you so much for joining me for this story today. Life is rarely as simple as it seems on the surface, and it's a powerful reminder to approach those we love with compassion and understanding. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you won't miss our next story. We'd love to have you as part of our community. Until next time, take care.